Hi, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for our second of 3 webinar presentations to cover the work that our great teams in fisheries are doing throughout Indiana. We will be kind of talking tonight a little bit about districts 2 and 3, which is the northeast part of the state. And we'll be talking about all of the work that our fishery staff are doing, which can include surveys, where to find fish, where structures are located. We'll cover lots of great tools. We'll cover stockings and some tips on where to fish and what to fish for in those areas of the state. For anybody who joined us last night, I did just want to throw out there that the very beginning portion of this meeting will cover resources just like last night's did, but then it will get into district specific information. So it's not going to be a repeat of last night, but we are going to cover some housekeeping stuff at the beginning and some resources at the beginning that are applicable across the state of Indiana. My co-host, Adeline, is going to be on here as well. She will be helping us behind the scenes. And then Matt Litton will be our first presenter. He is the supervisor for this region. A couple of notes before we get started into the meat of this presentation. So Teams has a Q&A feature allowing us to make this presentation interactive, which is awesome. So we definitely want to make sure that you guys are able to ask questions of our biologists and we can answer those questions to the best of our ability. So to use that Q&A feature, you should see 2 bubbles on your toolbar that say Q&A. Just click on that, excuse me, and you'll be able to type in a question. And then at the end of the presentation for the last 10 to 15 minutes, we will field as many of those as we can. We'll also be sharing contact information for our biologists for any questions we don't get to. That way you can follow up with them directly. In case you're interested in closed captioning, Teams does offer that as an option. So if you go to the More button and then your settings, you can turn on auto-generated captions throughout this event. And then we will also have one more webinar. As I mentioned, this is 2 of 3. So tomorrow night we'll be covering the entire south portion of the state. So if you tend to travel regionally around for fishing or are also interested in information about the south, be sure to tune in tomorrow night at the same time from 5:30 to 6:30. And then in a couple of weeks, recording of these presentations will also be going on our YouTube channel. So they'll be able to be long-lived resources for you guys to reference as needed to get access to those important resources and share with other folks if they're interested. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to Matt Lynn to kick us into the presentation. Matt, take it away.
Thanks, Mariah. As Mariah said, I am Matthew Lynn. I'm the Fisheries Research Biologist and Northeast Region Supervisor. First thing I want to talk about is our funding for our fisheries work that we do. Our conservation work that promotes healthy fish and wildlife populations and their habitats is funded through the sale of fishing licenses and excise taxes collected from fishing equipment and gas sales. These taxes are distributed by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service back to each state. So that's where the money comes from to do all the surveys and stockings and habitat work that we're going to talk about tonight. A brief outline of what we're going to be going through is what our fisheries biologists do. We're going to review some resources that are available to anglers on our website. And each of the district biologists, which tonight will be District 2 and 3, which is the northeast corner on that map that you can see. Within those 2 districts, the district biologists, Matt Horsley and Tyler DeLauder, are going to review their schedules of what surveys they have done in the last year and what they're doing this year, some district highlights, some habitat projects that they may be doing or research, review some select sport fish information, talk about some of the stock species in their districts and where those species are stocked, and also just some recommendations for fishing locations based on what they're seeing on the water. And to start with, what our fisheries biologists do in Northeast Indiana, they monitor our public freshwater resources. So that includes lakes, ponds, rivers, and streams. And at many points during the presentation tonight, I may say glacial lake or natural lake. That means a lake that is naturally formed when glaciers receded in Northeast Indiana or northern Indiana. Whereas an impoundment or a reservoir, you might hear throughout the presentation, that's a man-made lake. And on these different resources, we conduct fishery surveys, water quality surveys, aquatic vegetation surveys. And within our fishery surveys, we do two primary types of surveys, including what we call targeted species surveys, where we're looking at a particular population of a particular species. So things like crappie, black bass, and when I say black bass, that means largemouth bass, smallmouth bass, and spotted bass, walleye, sauger, hybrid striped bass, and a few others as well. And then we also do fish community surveys where we're looking at all the different fish that form the entire fish community of the lake in those surveys. They also conduct angler creel surveys where we're going out on the water and we're asking anglers questions about their angling experiences and what they're harvesting to get an idea of what our anglers are experiencing. They also make stocking recommendations based on the conditions they're seeing in their surveys. They do some aquatic habitat enhancement projects. They also assist with broodstock collection for walleye, muskie, and salmon. And what broodstock collection is, that's when we go out and get the fish to collect the eggs for the hatchery to raise the fish to be restocked back into our resources. They also do public outreach events like fishing derbies, the boat sport and travel show, school groups, things of that nature. In certain circumstances, we may renovate a lake, which is where we're killing off all the fish in the lake and restarting and restocking that lake. And those are undertaken in very unique circumstances and not very often. We also use the surveys that we do to make rule and regulation proposals and review those that are sent to us as well. As I mentioned, there's a variety of different resources available to anglers on our DNR website. There's 3 QR codes on this screen. The first one on the top will take you to our DNR fishing homepage. There's also one that will take you to the contact information for our district fisheries biologist, as well as one for our where to fish map, which you can look at where the location of every state public access site is located. Brief outline of what I'm going to talk about and resources I'm going to go through is our fishing homepage or landing page. A lot of information is available there. I'll briefly talk about our status and trends program, show you what is available on our aquatic habitat enhancement website, our fishing reports website, which is a website that provides angler reported information on where fish are biting and what techniques are working well. Also a website that shows links to all our updated lake depth maps, so the bottom contours of our lakes are available on that website, as well as a website with links to fish survey reports, so all the reports that our fisheries biologists create that provide information on the survey results of what they find on the water. So here is the fishing landing page. There's a lot of information on here that you could go through, but the 3 things I want to point out on the left that are really helpful are our fish stocking, a link to our fish stocking page, our fish survey reports page, as well as our status and trend survey results page. And I'll go into each of those at this time. So here's a screenshot of what our stocking website looks like. And really importantly is this hyperlink to the fish stocking dashboard, which will take you to our fish stocking dashboard, which allows you to filter all of our stockings based on water body, county, the species that's stocked and the year that it was stocked. So you can look at any one of those and look at what went in the past and what has gone in recently. Here's a brief outline of what the survey season looks like for our fisheries biologists in the spring. So right about now, our biologists are out on the water doing targeted surveys for species like crappie, walleye, and bass. And also doing those broodstock collections that I mentioned for muskie and walleye. Those were finished up a couple weeks ago. And there also might be doing some selective vegetation monitoring surveys. And then as we transition into summer, that's when we get into our status and trend surveys, which is our fish community surveys. And I'll talk about those in more detail momentarily. They'll do some other fish community surveys as well outside of the status and trends. They'll do some hydroacoustic surveys. And what hydroacoustic surveys are is driving around on the lake like you're mowing the lawn. And it has some electronics in our boat, and it maps the bottom contours of the lake and allows us to create those high resolution updated depth maps for anglers to utilize. They'll also do vegetation monitoring in the summer. And then as they transition into fall, that's when they do river and stream surveys. And then they'll also do some targeted surveys in the fall for species like hybrid striped bass and walleye. And then in the winter, that's when our biologists will get around to doing the analysis of the results and writing reports and getting equipment ready for the next field season. This is the website for our fish survey reports. As I mentioned, when a biologist finishes the analysis of their survey data, they'll generate a report. This website will provide you the ability to review the results of those surveys. And you can filter this again by year, survey type, the water body that you're interested in, or the county. And then on the right side of this table, there's a blue hyperlink, and that's where you click to open up the report in the form of a PDF. I mentioned that in the summer we do status and trend surveys. Our status and trend surveys have really become the foundational part of our fish community surveys and long-term monitoring of our glacial lakes and reservoirs in Indiana. What these surveys allow us to do is to track any changes that we see in the fish communities over long periods of time. So our data set for glacial lakes goes back all the way back to 1986. So we're monitoring trends in those fish communities over that entire length of time. And not only are we monitoring what's going on with fish communities, we're monitoring what's changing with water quality and habitat in the form of vegetation. We capture our fish for these surveys using 3 primary gear types, and that includes nighttime electrofishing, which temporarily stuns the fish with electricity. We net the fish, collect the data that we need on them, and then put them right back in the lake. We also use small trap nets, which have a lead on them that's like a fence, which then funnels the fish into a square trap of sorts. And then again, we collect the fish out of those nets, collect the information we need, and put them right back in the lake. And then the 3rd gear type we use is a gill net, which is you can think of as a long volleyball net, which the fish swim into and get tangled up, and then we remove them, again, collect the information, and then put them back in the lake. The important thing for anglers is that on our Status and Trends website, you can look at the survey results using this dashboard. Along the top, it's separated by glacial lakes, reservoirs, and individual lake surveys. What this allows you to do is sort the data how you'd like to look at it in terms of what species you're interested in, for example. If you're interested in just bluegill, you can use this filter here where there's the red arrow and change it to the species of interest. So in this case, bluegill. It will automatically update the survey results on the table to show the lake or survey that we caught the most bluegill in during a survey. And then where you now see the red dot on the right, you can filter the length of fish that you're interested in. So if you're only interested in 8-inch and larger bluegill, it will automatically update to sort the table to the lakes that we caught the most 8-inch and larger bluegill. So in this case, it'd be Old Lake in Whitley County, where we caught 68 8-inch and larger bluegill. Same data is available for our reservoir status and trend surveys. And you can also sort your information by individual lakes as well. So if there's a specific lake you're interested in, you can go to the tab on the right for individual lake surveys. In this case, you can drop it down and change it to, say, for example, Shipshewana Lake, where survey was completed in 2022. It'll provide the total number of fish species of each species on the table, from most caught to least caught. And again, you can filter by individual links as well. Also want to mention our aquatic invasive species program. There's links here for anglers or members of the public to report any possible invasive species that they see on the water to us. It's always easier to catch those early on and deal with them appropriately than before they get established. There's also a link available to report sightings of invasive carp as well. There's a number of volunteer opportunities throughout the state for anglers if they'd like to participate in any of those. There's the Great Lakes Landing Blitz in June through August, aquatic habitat structure build days. You can volunteer at hatcheries or state properties, helping children fish at the State Fair Fishing Pond in August, and many more. And lastly, I'll mention that we do aquatic habitat management projects in the region. The district biologists are going to get into more detail on what they have going on in their region, but I will mention we're doing an emergent vegetation establishment project at Kokomo Reservoir, and also a fish attractor, building in our reservoirs in District 3 as well. But I will let the district biologists get into those in more detail. And with that, I will pass it off to our District 2 biologist, Matt Horsley.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. My name is Matt Horsley. I'm the biologist for District 2, located here out of Fawn River State Fish Hatchery. Been with the district for about 9 years. In the last 5, I've been working as the district biologist. Also with the district is Abby Schrader. She works as the assistant biologist under me. Now, District 2 it consists of only 5 counties up in the very northeast part of the state, but it has a lot of resources and a lot of opportunity. Kind of located in what we call the Glacial Lakes region of the state. Most of the water bodies that I manage are natural lakes, ranging from just a couple acres all the way up to over 1,000 acres in size. A couple of popular ones in my district include Clear Lake, Crooked Lake, Hamilton, and Lake James, with Lake James actually being the largest one I have in my district at just a little over 1,000 acres in size. Now, in addition to the natural lakes I have, I got several rivers and streams in the district that are very popular fishing destinations. The St. Joe River being the largest river I have in the district, and one of the larger tributaries of the St. Joe River is the Elkhart, and also the Pigeon and Fawn rivers. I also have several smaller cold water streams that do support year-round trout fisheries that I manage, and then also do manage a few county and city park ponds throughout the district, especially over in St. Joseph County. In 2025, the district had a little over 100,000 fish stocked into our waterways. This included 32 different total water bodies and 9 total species of fish. One thing that I kind of wanted to point out was that over 14,000 of those came from privately funded sources, including conservation clubs, lake associations, and also municipalities. We work hand in hand with these organizations and to provide as much opportunity as possible. And we greatly appreciate the help that we get from them to enhance our regional fisheries. The table lists a couple of some of the popular stockings across District 2, including a few of my program lakes that we stock walleye in on an annual basis. Clear, Crooked, Pretty Lakes all get annual stockings of walleyes, advanced walleyes stocked in the fall. And then also several water bodies that are being stocked with trout, a couple of different streams, and then several lakes, one in particular being the most popular is the Oliver Chain of Lakes, which gets spring stockings in March for rainbow trout, and then also it's followed up with brown trout stockings in May. And then on top of that, Lake Gage too as well as another popular rainbow trout fishery. For some of the work that we're doing in 2026, I did post the 2025 work schedule too as well, but I'm not going to go through that one. But for 2026, we actually got started on that last week of March. getting out and doing a pretty extensive netting survey over on Crooked Lake here in Steuben County. And we were after walleye and crappie on that. And we were also trying to get a good population estimate on Crooked Lake. This week, we're actually working on Dallas Lake, doing some crappie work. We actually have nets out on the lake right now as we speak, and we'll be finishing that up here tomorrow. Moving into May, we've got some targeted bass sampling. We typically try to target bass during the peak of the spawn. That's normally when we can find the best size structure and get a good representative sample of what the lake actually looks like. Crooked Lake is on there for May. We'll be back out there. And then also Stone and Berkesha Lakes in Elkhart County will be out there too as well in May. Additionally, starting in early June, we'll be out on Atwood Lake. We've been monitoring the bluegill population out there every year. The association's been very active at stocking walleyes in the lake. Part of that management plan was to improve the overall bluegill size structure and growth out there. We've been seeing some promising results, but we continue to monitor that every year. Followed up later in June, plan on doing a targeted shad survey over on Fish and Royer Lakes in LaGrange County. Shad infested both of those lakes back in the mid 2000s, and we've seen some pretty poor water quality resulted from that. So we've been working with the association on stocking those two lakes pretty heavily with walleye, northern pike. And when we have surplus catfish, we'll put those in there as well. So we'll be taking a look at those shad numbers on those two lakes. Moving further into June, like Matt said, we'll be starting our community surveys. We've got some small status and trend surveys. One on Lake George. We did complete a larger general survey on George back in 2021, but we'll be back out there again for just a small status and trend survey. Blackman Lake is also on the list. That's just over by Atwood Lake in LaGrange County. And then we'll be following that up with a community survey on Crane Marsh, which is located on Trine Recreational Area. It's a very popular ice fishing location, so we want to make sure we can take a look at that fish population. And then all three of those lakes will definitely be doing a plant survey as well as some water quality work and acoustic mapping out there as well. Moving into late August, early September, we normally try to fit in a stream trout survey somewhere. This year, we're going to try to get over to Solomon Creek. It hasn't been surveyed in about 11 to 12 years. We normally like to try to get in there to just monitor the stock trout that we put in there, and then seeing what the overall success of that stocking program is. And then we'll finish up this fall in October with several walleye evaluations. These surveys are strictly to look at the previous year's walleye stockings. So to look at survival and whether or not those stockings were successful or not. Now jumping into some of our survey data from previous years. Some of our bass surveys, our targeted bass surveys that we've completed over the years. Just wanted to provide a little bit of the results, a little bit on how to read this chart. It goes from highest catch on the left to lowest catch on the right. So Hamilton, Golden, and Big Long experienced higher catch rates of bass compared to Troxel and Bower Lake, which is on the right. The different color codes indicate different size ranges of bass and also the percentage of the total catch. So for example, Hamilton Lake, looking at that chart, uh, most of those fish, approximately 80% of those fish that we collected during our targeted sampling were under 14 inches in size, whereas 20% were right around 14 inches and larger. So using that data on the table, you can say Fish and Clear Lake and Steuben County would both be pretty good lakes to fish if you're looking for bass that are over 14 inches and larger. This map is actually just the distribution of some of these lakes across my district. Obviously, Steuben and LaGrange County have most of those lakes, as they do have most of the glacial lakes in my district. So most of that water is in the eastern part of my district. Now, not all of the lakes that were on the previous chart are on here, and then some that there's some additional lakes on here too as well. But these are very popular bass fishing destinations throughout the district. Similar for bluegill and red ear. This chart here is actually from our status and trends data that we do every year on our lakes. Similar in terms of setup on the previous chart, highest catch rate on the left, the lowest catch rate on the right. Barton, Long, and Appleman all produced higher catches of panfish, whereas Pleasant and Fox produced lower catches. Some of the better bluegill lakes in my district off of this chart would be Long, Appleman, Marsh, Bell, and Big Turkey lakes. Those are lakes that you'd want to fish if you're looking for fish over that 6 inch and 6 inch and bigger, or harvestable sized fish. Similar, again, this chart's real similar to the previous two. This is from some of our targeted crappie sampling from what we do in early and mid-April. Big Turkey, Hamilton, Crooked all produced high catches of crappie, whereas Silver and Fox had some lower catches. Looking at Hamilton, we see a very large percentage of the individuals that we collected were under 8 inches in size, whereas in Big Turkey and Crooked, we saw a higher percentage of larger 8 inch and larger crappie. Now that doesn't reflect on a year to year. We may see that change for each lake. Hamilton Lake especially, some of those smaller fish will be moving into that larger size category to make it a little bit better quality fish out there. This is a map of the popular panfish fisheries that we have in the district. Again, most of them are on the east side of the county through most of our glacial lakes. And there's also some that are in the northern part of District 3 too as well, that are within close proximity or close driving distance of some of those other lakes. A walleye in the district, it's been very popular, and there's been a high demand from a lot of our lake associations, our anglers, and also other clubs. Altogether, we have 16 different water bodies in the district that receive walleyes, either through state sourced fish, meaning fish that come from our state fish hatcheries, or through commercial suppliers that we pay state funds for. Also, some that we get through mitigation funds, or then also some of the privately funded stockings that we have from some of our lake associations and different clubs. We've had a lot of interest from these lake associations to stock, and we've created some really good walleye fisheries from those privately funded stockings. So again, much appreciated from our associations and clubs for stepping up and creating some really good fisheries. One of the walleye lakes that I really wanted to highlight That's been really popular amongst anglers as Crooked Lake in Steuben County. The lake does get annual stockings of advanced walleye fingerlings, and by advanced I mean fall fingerlings that are 6 to 8 inches in size. Typically, those that are stocked at that length do much better, get much better survival from those larger sized fish. And it's yielded high catch rates from anglers, especially during the fall prior to ice up. This spring, like I said, we were out there and completed an extensive netting survey, collected about 1,300 different walleyes out there, and the chart below actually shows some of the data, the length frequency distribution of the walleyes collected. A lot of the fish were in that 15 to 16 inch range. 16 inches is the minimum size here in Indiana, or at least above State Road 26. And a lot of those 15-inch fish will definitely be moving into that 16-inch category this year. We estimated the population of those 15-inch and larger fish at just under 2,300 individuals, or roughly 2.9 fish per acre. For an average lake that's stocked with walleyes, we should be seeing anywhere between 1.5 to 4 fish per acre. So we're right in the middle of where we need to be for that lake. One of the things too I wanted to highlight, I've been getting a lot of calls and a lot of interest from anglers on northern pike lakes in the district. The northern pikes seem to be becoming a little more popular. And I don't have every single lake that has a northern pike population listed, just some of the better ones in the district. One in particular that stands out in terms of density would be Hamilton Lake in southern Steuben County. It's probably likely got the highest pike density of any water body in the state. The pike do run a little bit smaller in Hamilton, but they're very plentiful. And we've actually, back in 2016, put a regulation in place to eliminate the size limit for northern pike out there and increase the bag to 6 fish. But for larger pike, I would definitely focus on fishing lakes like Big Long, James, or even Clear Lake. The one lake I really wanted to highlight that I was really impressed with in one of our surveys a couple years ago was Lake James. Lake James has always been known as a good pike lake, but we hadn't had really any recent data on the lake. The last survey that we did was back in 2000, so it's been 20 some years before since we did a survey. So we were out there in 2023 and actually collected quite a few northern pike. And one of the things that I was really impressed with was that we did see a very large percentage of those fish being 30 inches or larger. Now the lake is a little tough to fish because it is mostly developed, and it does get a lot of boat traffic in the summertime. But if you hit it early spring or in the fall, or even ice fish it in the wintertime, fishing can be really good. As for trout, I have to say District 2 does get a vast majority of the inland trout that is stocked in the state. Most of these are spring stockings, which take place in March and April. But we also have several additional stockings that take place up until Memorial Day. That helps extend that put and take fishery on a lot of our streams here in our district. One lake in particular, like I mentioned earlier, is Oliver Lake. That's very popular amongst anglers, and we see almost up to 1,000 angler parties there during the open water season. Now, most of our trout sites are put and take fisheries, but we do have a few trout streams that we do see good holdover, and fish do survive year round. But natural reproduction in these streams is very minimal and non-existent. So they are dependent on annual stockings to maintain their populations. One stream in particular that has become really popular and has really good holdover is the Little Elkhart River. This stream runs from the western part of LaGrange County into Elkhart County and then eventually flows northward into the St. Joe River up near Bristol. The stream does maintain steady cold water habitat during the summer, so we get very good survival of the trout that we do stock, and we see those trout survive for several years post stockings. It has become one of the favorites for fly fishermen, and it's also becoming very popular for a fall and wintertime trout fishery. And we do see trout over 20 inches taken out of there every year. So it is a pretty phenomenal trout stream for the marginal trout fisheries that we do have in the state. So this map here just details some of the stocking sites that we have on the Little Elkhart, ranging all the way from 300 south in LaGrange County, all the way up to State Road 120 near Bristol. There are several access points on the stream. Most of them are bridge crossings, but we do have two parks, one being a county park, Bonneville Mill, which is up northwest of Middlebury. And then we also have Riverbend Park, which is downtown Middlebury. Both of those have really good public access to get into the stream and a lot of shoreline fishing opportunities as well. The Little Elkhart does get roughly 4,400 brown trout stocked into the stream each year to produce a very good fishery for the whole entire stretch of the river. One of the other streams that I wanted to talk about and just mention briefly is the Pigeon River that runs through both Steuben and LaGrange counties. We do have about 25 river miles of stocked water there in the springtime, stretching all the way up from Flint on the eastern part of the map, all the way down to Ontario Dam, that's close to Howe. Each year we stock roughly 11,000 trout in that stream. Most of those are rainbow trout that we stock prior to opening day, but we do stock a few thousand browns in there. And one small stretch that we do have a good cold water inflow that can keep trout alive year round there. So we do stock a couple of browns in there. Now we do see that does run through Pigeon River Fish and Wildlife Area. So most of that stretch is through public land. So there are a lot of access points on there, including 3 different dams that we stock. It does attract a lot of anglers for opening weekend. Normally we estimate roughly 500 to 600 anglers utilize that stretch of river for opening weekend. Which by the way starts here on Saturday, the 25th. Couple other opportunities that I wanted to mention that I didn't mention earlier. The St. Joe River smallmouth bass fishery. That is one that's becoming very popular. We do see fish in that 3 to 5 pound range caught on a regular basis. What's unique about the St. Joe is that we have a lot of access from where it comes down into Indiana to where it goes back up into Michigan. So there's a lot of fishable water there that people can get on. Some of the better places to fish for smallmouth would be that Bristol stretch down to Six Span Bridge, which Six Span is actually listed, shown in the picture on the left. And then Elkhart Impoundment, which is right downstream of where that picture's located, and then below Mishawaka Dam. And then also a good fall time fishery for smallmouth would be that stretch from St. Pat's Park all the way down to the Michigan state line. Another opportunity that I wanted to make note of is the Indian Lakes channel catfish stockings. The 5 lakes, Dallas, Whitmer, Wessler, Mesick, and Hackenberg, do receive alternating years channel catfish stockings. So we're stocking every other year out there. That has been a program that's been in place since the 90s, and it's been very popular, and we'll continue that program. But that picture there was actually taken today while we were out on Dallas. So there are some giant catfish in there. I do hear of an occasional 10 to 15 pounder being caught out of there. That's all I have. I'm going to pass this on to Tyler and let him talk to you guys about some of the things that he's doing in his district, and have at her, Tyler.
Thank you, Matt. Like you said, my name is Tyler DeLauder. I'm the district fisheries biologist. I've been with the DNR full-time since 2012, so around coming up on 15 years here. Again, there's my contact information. Feel free. Any questions you have, like river streams that deal with any lakes or water bodies in counties, please. Just make sure that you reach out to me.
Hey, Tyler.
Yeah.
Tyler, I think we're experiencing a little technical difficulties. Could you try turning off your mic and maybe turning it back on?
How's that?
It's sounding a little bit like you're coming from space. It wouldn't be a Teams meeting if we didn't have some kind of technical difficulties, right? Do you have another mic that you can use by any chance?
How's this sound?
That sounds perfect.
Better. All right, there we go. Okay, so y'all, sorry about that. Again, my name's Tyler DeLauder. I'm the District 3 Fisheries biologist, like was stated. Again, those are the list of the counties that I manage. Again, please feel free to reach out via phone, email, whatever works best for you. Again, the things that we're going to talk about today, definitely could talk about each one of these topics for probably over an hour. So again, going to give a brief update. But yeah, looking forward to speaking and telling you what my district has to offer here. So again, as you can see, there's a map. Again, like Matt said, his district is mainly glacial lakes, natural lakes. I also have some natural lakes in my district, as well as some Army Corps reservoirs. So again, kind of have both. So again, just one lake or a few lakes I want to highlight. Lake Wawasee is a little over 3,000 acres. It is the largest natural lake in Indiana. Again, as far as reservoirs, J.E. Roush Reservoir, Salamone, Mississinewa Reservoir are all managed by the Army Corps of Engineers. Some streams and rivers that go through my district are the Tippecanoe, Mississinewa, and the Wabash. And we do manage, like Matt mentioned, some small ponds in some of our larger cities and urban areas, again, and mainly in Fort Wayne there. So I wanted to talk about a few projects that District 3's got currently going on. It was mentioned earlier, but our muskie brood program takes place at Webster Lake, which is in Kosciuszko County. It's, again, where we set nets in the springtime, usually the last week of March. You can see the picture of the net there in the bottom right. They're about 300 feet long, really large. We collect muskies for our hatchery staff, who then strip the eggs and are able to basically take those eggs back to the hatcheries, raise those fish, and be able to again, stock the entire state with muskies. From a fish management side, we've also placed a lot of pit tags in some of these fish. A pit tag is very comparable to what you would have placed in your cat and dog. We use a scanner. You can't see the tag from externally, so if you caught one, you wouldn't know it unless you had one of those scanners. But it provides us a number, which then provides us, we can look it up in our database to tell when we stocked that fish, how old that fish is it growing correctly, those sorts of things. The next project is a Tri-Lakes bass removal project. So we were approached by the Lake Association and some local anglers that Tri-Lakes, which in this case is Big Cedar, Little Cedar, and Round Lake in Whitley, kind of the Noble County line there. But again, we had a lot of small bass. It was very rare to see anything that was over 14 inches in length. We did some survey work some of the targeted surveys that were mentioned earlier, and we had some extremely slow growth, stunted bass. So we went in and started basically a removal project. We're going in, we've done it for 2 years, and we're committed to do it for 5 years. We went in each year and removed around 1,000 bass, and we are relocating those bass to J.E. Roush Reservoir in Huntington. As you can see on the photo, we are placing a jaw tag on those fish before we release them in Roush. This gives us a way to see if, to track those fish, as well as anglers to report them. So on that tag, you're going to see my phone number, a tag number, and the year that the fish was stocked. So if you happen to be out on Roush and catch one of those fish, we would much appreciate them being reported so that we can kind of track how things are going. The next project, this is one that we've been working on for a few years at the Mississinawa Reservoir. So on the property over there, they have a rearing pond. So we've been experimenting with walleye, and this last year we did largemouth bass. Basically, it's kind of we use the pond, we stocked fry in it. So basically, fry is a very small fish. They just hatched recently out of from the egg. So they're going in at less than an inch in most cases, or around an inch. We're placing them in the pond, and this is kind of a hands-off approach. So we're not doing a whole lot of management or checking on the pond. The property is buying some fathead minnows to basically kind of start the food web there. But then we basically don't touch the pond until the fall time. So when we go back, we drain the pond, and we're basically just trying to see what we can get out of it. We're seeing some really good success. Typically, when we use walleye, we're getting around 3,500 or so walleye. The goal is to get them as large as we can, but they've been on average about 4 inches. Last year, we ended up doing some largemouth bass, and this was an instance where we didn't have walleye fry available, so we wanted to do something, so we were able to get some largemouth bass fry. And we estimated around 15,000 bass that we were able to place into Mississinawa Reservoir, and the average length was all 5 inches, as you can see in the photo there. So really happy with those results. The next project, and Matthew mentioned some emergent program or project that we have going on. This is going on at Kokomo Reservoir. So we're basically trying to establish some emergent vegetation in the reservoir. Again, there hasn't been any there for years. So we've went in with some whitewater lily and spatterdock, which are emergents, which emergents mean it's the type of plant that's going to grow up and out of the water. Submergent plants would be something that would grow off the bottom and stay in the water column. So we basically have used some enclosures, which is the picture on the left you're going to see. Those are basically placed in there to protect and give the whitewater lily and the spatterdock a chance to grow without having to fight off carp or predation or something trying to eat it. So basically those enclosures provide protection. And as you can see from the other photos, we're starting to see some pretty good results. And we're also at the point where we're starting to remove the enclosures and let them kind of naturally expand on their own. We do plan to continue for a few more years to go back and plant new beds, and hopefully we can continue to expand them. So here's a project that we're going to be starting here, hopefully in May. Basically, we're going to do a black bass tracking study planned for the West Lakes chain. If you're familiar with the area, you may have heard it as Duke's Bridge. That's where the public access sign is, and kind of the locals always refer to it as Duke's Bridge instead of the West Lakes chain. Basically, I've gotten a lot of questions over the years on if an angler or a tournament, they go up into the lake system, catch a bass and bring it back to the boat ramp and it's released. Where does that bass go? So basically, we're going to be surgically implanting an acoustic tag into a few dozen largemouth bass and potentially smallmouth bass if we can get our hands on some. The tag there on the left, you'll see, is about the size of a AA battery. So that will be surgically implanted into the belly of the fish. It will be externally marked there by that orange Floyd tag. So if an angler does happen to catch one of these fish, they will know it. The receiver on the right is actually what we will anchor out throughout the lake system. And anytime one of our tagged fish swims by that, it's going to record that data for us. So again, we're excited about this project and looking forward to getting it started here in the next month or so. Aquatic habitat. So this has mainly been on our Army Corps reservoirs. Again, Roush, Salmoni, Mississinawa. We've been working with the Army Corps of Engineers, the DNR properties, and state parks over there to basically, again, add habitat, add attractors to those water bodies. Again, if you're familiar, a lot of these reservoirs were created in the 70s and the early 80s where, again, when they were first created, there was lots of habitat. As they've aged out, which is typical amongst reservoirs, the remaining woody debris and habitat is kind of lacking. So we're going in, trying to create some new fish habitat for these, for crappie and channel cat and different species in the reservoir. We've kind of tasked ourselves with tackling one reservoir per year. So we've done Roush in 2024. 25, we completed this Salamone one, and then Mississinawa will be planned for this year. Again, some of these will look familiar with what Matt talked about. Again, just wanted to highlight a few of the stockings that are being occurring in my district. Sylvan Lake is one that gets walleye, as well as Winona receive advanced walleye fingerlings every year, which Matt mentioned. Those are the 6 to 8 inch fish. We've got Webster Lake getting some muskies every year. Clare Lake is my only hybrid striped bass lake. It's been receiving those for a few years and actually doing really well. It also is receiving saugeye, which it was the first time was last year, and that's the first saugeyes location that we have in my district. So interested to see what that looks like in a few more years. Survey schedule, again, the 2025 schedule. Again, I would encourage you, if you see a lake on there that you want to talk further about, again, reach out. We can go over the results and talk about what we found and kind of what we saw. Again, the 2026 schedule, like we've already mentioned, we've started the muskie brood was completed and finished basically the first week of April. The Roush Reservoir crappie is still on our list. We're waiting for the water levels to go down a little bit so we can get out there. But we plan to get out there potentially the first week of May. Then once we hit into a little bit deeper into May, we'll start working on the Tri-Lakes removal project, as well as going to Eagle Lakes and Mississinawa Reservoir. Again, like I mentioned, the West Lake study should start around then. And then we'll move into the status and trends, which again, that's the fish community. So we'll be at Roush Reservoir, Yellow Creek Lake, and Big Cedar Lake, and as well as Webster's. And then the fall, we'll hit up Sylvan and Kokomo for fall walleye evaluations. Matt already explained this chart, so I won't go into too much detail going through what the colors mean. Again, depending on what you're after. Again, some people just like to go to a lake and catch a lot of fish. Some want to target larger fish. This chart gives you the ability to kind of look at what we got during our surveys and kind of make up your own mind on maybe a lake you'd want to try or you've always wondered about. Again, for example, on this one, Lake Wawasee, we caught a lot of fish, and a good portion of those fish were 14 inches and larger there. Robinson is one in Whitley County. It does have a large number of large fish there, as you can see. As you go over to, Huntington and Washinga, again, Washinga showing that we had a pretty good, we saw some nice sized bass, but we only caught a handful. So just kind of knowing what you're getting there. Again, just here, a map just kind of show you a distribution of some of those lakes and where they're located. Again, Shock and Spear is one that I should mention. It's on the Tri-County Fish and Wildlife area. Again, we've done some surveys out there in recent years and really good bass population, as well as I'm sure will come up is also the bluegill and panfish populations are good as well. Again, same chart here for bluegill and red ear. Again, they're, like I mentioned, Spear Lake. Spear Lake was one that ranked out really high as far as what we caught. Again, caught a lot of 6 to 8, but didn't see a lot of the 8 inch and over. Palestine Lake there on the left also kind of showed out. Again, maybe one you want to try there with a high catch rate, as well as seeing quite a few fish over that 8 inch mark. Again, here's for our crappie. Again, these were targeted crappie surveys. Again, Wawasee, Sylvan there leading the way there. Loon Lake, one there where again we saw quite a few smaller fish, but did not collect any fish that were over 10 inches. Again, Salamone, Mississinawa, again, those being really some of my better reservoirs for crappie. Again, Salamone seeing a large number of fish over 10 inches, which was good to see. And again, just a map here, distribution showing the different panfish lakes. It's potentially something you'd like to try. Walleye and saugeye in my district. Like I mentioned, saugeye, Clare Lake in Huntington County there is the first saugeye lake that I have in my district. As far as the walleye go, Sylvan and Winona are probably my most two popular lakes. Sylvan's always been a little bit better for numbers, Winona a little bit for size. However, we're starting to see a little bit of a shift at Sylvan where we're starting to get see some larger fish there. So again, continuing to monitor that and kind of keep an eye on that. Loon Lake is one that is privately funded. Like Matt mentioned, it's a group of anglers that gets together and fundraises and basically purchases those fish. So again, excited to work with those every year. And again, Kokomo and Mississinawa are also some down towards the southwest corner of my district that would be potentially worth trying. Hybrid striped bass, again, the only lake that I've got there is Clare Lake in Huntington. Again, there's a photo there of me holding a hybrid striped bass. Been very successful. It's only 42 acres, so it's a really small body of water. Again, it's definitely something worth trying. If you've never caught one, they put up a really good fight. Muskie, again, I've got probably the most muskie stockings out of any district across the state. Again, we've kind of got in Kosciuszko County there. We've kind of got we've got 3 lake chains that are, we've got the Webster Lake and backwater. We've got the Tippecanoe chain and the Barbie chain. So again, there's a lot of musky water right there. Again, very popular for their musky anglers. Trout stockings. Again, I have a couple small streams that are stocked with trout. Like Matt mentioned, again, opener is this Saturday. So that'll be something worth noting. Again, we've got a few rainbow trout stockings as well as some fall stockings. The fall stockings are kind of geared more towards small ponds and some lakes, again, that are very popular. Again, the Shoke Park Pond in Fort Wayne is a popular pond area for a lot of folks in the fall. And again, like I said, this spring, Spy Run is probably my most popular. That's, again, located right across from the Fort Wayne Children's Zoo. Again, it's a really popular area. The Lake and River Enhancement Program within DNR has done some good projects there on the bank, so it's easily accessible. And like I said, very popular and again, something maybe worth checking out. I believe that's all I've got.
Right. Thank you so much, Tyler. I really appreciate it. I am going to go ahead and put you and Matt on screen. And it looks like we do have a couple of questions here, so we'll jump right in there. Let's see. Matt, if you had to pick one stream to catch brown trout in, which would it be within your district? And then I'll let Tyler answer that same question for his district.
Yeah, so like I mentioned on one of my highlights earlier, the Little Elkhart would definitely be the stream that I would be targeting if I wanted to go fish for brown trout. It's in terms of stocking, it gets the most fish throughout the year across the whole entire stretch. Roughly 4,400 go in there. It maintains some good cold water habitat for those trout to survive year round. So you have that opportunity to not just fish right around opening day, but you can go out throughout the entire summer and into the fall and winter and fish for those trout. There's a series of good gravel runs and riffles through that stretch of river that provides good habitat, a lot of log jams. And then we also have a small section of that is in the catch and immediate release area, which adds that added protection for some of those fish too as well to move down into other sections of the stream.
Thanks, Matt. Do any streams stand out to you, Tyler, for your district?
Yeah, I've only got for brown trout. I've only got one, so it's easy to pick. It would be Cedar Creek. It's in Allen County. We stock a site just north of Matea Park there. So again, it's kind of a newer stocking. So again, we're still kind of haven't really done an evaluation on there on how well they're doing. But yeah, that'd be the spot I would send people to in my district.
Got it. Thank you. And then you guys kind of touched on this, I believe, as well, but just as a reminder, can you both touch on what your best bass lakes are in your districts?
Well, it really depends on what you're targeting. We have some phenomenal smallmouth bass fisheries in my district, and I didn't mention much in terms of smallmouth bass, but Clear Lake up in the very northeast corner of the state has a really awesome springtime smallmouth bass fishery. Where those fish go in the summer is beyond me. They go deep. They get a little harder to find. But this time of year, it gets a lot of angler traffic going after those smallmouth. And then another one I wanted to mention was Big Long in LaGrange County. That was historically a lake that had a stunted bass population. We implemented a slot limit on that lake back, I believe it was 2016, and it's been very successful. And we've seen a huge turnaround in the bass population over there. And we see fish in that 5 to 7 pound range caught regularly over there. So that would be another really good one too as well. And then I have to mention Hamilton Lake. Hamilton Lake is a fish factory. There's a pile of fish in there, and it gets 20-pound bags during bass tournaments are not uncommon in the springtime.
Yeah, and I guess for my district, I can answer quick. I would, if you're looking for a large lake, Lake Wawasee is a good one to target. Again, largest lake, so again, there's lots of areas. Again, catch a lot of nice fish throughout the year. If you're looking for a little smaller body of water, Palestine Lake, just south of Warsaw, is a really good bass fishing lake. And then one more that's even a little bit smaller would be Robinson Lake, which I mentioned early off that chart. It's in the west side of Whitley County. It's a good one to target.
Got it. Thank you, Tyler. And we're seeing a few extra questions come in, so I will keep us just a couple extra minutes to make sure we're getting to some of those. For both of you or either of you, has there been any trends or issues with invasive species in either district?
Yeah, I'll start. Some of the things that obviously most of the invasives that we have here in my district are aquatic vegetation. Starry stonewort has been kind of the new invasive that we've been dealing with. It was first introduced into Indiana and first found and I believe Lake Wawasee back in 2008, 2009. And then it's moved across our glacial lakes region quite rapidly. It's been a huge problem in terms of outcompeting a lot of our native plants, and it's very difficult to treat, and it grows very dense, so it hinders a lot of boat traffic, especially in shallow water areas. Some of the other two common invasives that we see that are more manageable would be Eurasian milfoil and then curly leaf pondweed. Those have been around for a long time. So we haven't had really any issue with managing those as long as we have maintain an aggressive management strategy to keep those under control. That hasn't been an issue. Luckily for me, I'm in most of my district is in the Lake Michigan watershed. So one of the big invasive species that have been going around the state that's kind of big news is Asian carp. Being in the St. Joe watershed and most of my water flowing into Lake Michigan, I have not experienced that problem at all. Most of those we see on the Ohio River basin and also the Wabash. I think Tyler probably experiences some more of those species than I do. So.
Yeah, like you mentioned, we do have some invasive carp in the Wabash, and basically kind of up against the Army Corps with the three I mentioned there, Roush, Huntington, or Roush, Salamone, Mississinawa. So we do have, they're butted up against the dam there. No detections or we haven't found any in the lakes or anything, but we do have an invasive carp unit that actually handles the majority of that sampling and that work. So I'm not greatly involved in that. But again, if you do have more questions about those, I'd encourage you to reach out to those folks.
Thank you both. And just as a reminder for everybody in the audience, we did put the aquatic invasive species link in there and how to report aquatic invasive species. So if you're noticing those species within your water bodies, please report those for us. And then I will cap this at our last question. Do either of you have notably rare or endangered species in your district? And if so, do you know anything about how they're monitored or taken care of? For that question asker, I'm going to also put the link to our webpage for our rare and endangered species monitoring. So they will have that resource as well.
Yeah, a lot of our endangered species, we have a non-game biologist that works with a lot of those rare non-game species, mussels and small minnows. One in particular that was recently put on the endangered species list here in the north was the Cisco. Historically, we had roughly 50 lakes in northern Indiana that had a Cisco population, but due to declining water quality, that is now down to about 7 lakes. 6 of those are in my district. Tyler has one in his district. Cisco, they are cold water fish. They require cold, well-oxygenated waters. And a lot of lakes don't support that habitat anymore. So we do annual water quality evaluations on those water bodies to check see if they are maintaining that cold water habitat. We have gotten away from actually doing Cisco sampling. Since they are an endangered species, we try not to get out there and net them because the method to capture Cisco is pretty invasive, and most of them don't survive being captured. So we went away from that and mostly monitor habitat now.
Tyler, did you have anything to add to that?
No, I think he covered it.
All right, great. Well, thank you both so much for your expertise and for all of your work presenting today. I really appreciate it. And with that, we will go ahead and be ending this presentation. Thanks so much to everybody in the audience who took the time out to participate tonight and to listen in, to learn a little bit more about our fisheries unit and all the great work we're doing throughout the region. Just a reminder, we do have one other webinar tomorrow evening covering the south part of the state if that's interesting to you, from 5:30 to 6:30. So please tune in there. And for any questions we didn't get to today, or if you think of other questions as you're noodling on all the information presented, feel free to reach out to our biologists at the contact information provided. So thanks so much and have a great evening.